I would like to start today's Purple Daily Show by just saying this. What?
I know.
What?
I think I nearly crashed into a snowbank on my way in reacting to the Anthony Barr news. I mean, we always have one or two players in free agency who back out of a verbal commitment, if you want to call it that, during the legal tampering period. And beyond that, nothing's final until 3 p.m. Central Time on Wednesday. But man, this is surprising because right now, the Vikings have no money. So clearly, in order for something to happen, the wheels are in motion. And for all those people who think the front office isn't doing anything, well, it's pretty evident that they are.
So if you have not been on Twitter and you have the radio on now and you're confused at why we're yelling at such a loud tone, the reason is because Anthony Barr is coming back. Yesterday, Anthony Barr was reported to be going to the New York Jets. That has reversed course, and Albert Breer just tweeted out that Barr is going to return to Minnesota for around $13.5 million per year, which I think is a little less than we thought, and it's less than the franchise tag. Of course, the Vikings are wizards with the salary cap, so it will be fascinating to see how that deal is structured and how the Vikings were able to bring back Anthony Barr. I am excited already for whenever in OTAs or workouts that we get to talk to Anthony Barr about what happened with the New York Jets, because as of yesterday, it appeared he was going there to fulfill his dream as a 3-4 outside linebacker that he had talked about with you and I several different times. And then all of a sudden here today, Anthony Barr will be back. I've got a theory that it was my article that
You said they were going to miss him so much, and clearly they read it, and they're like, shoot, we really do miss him.
Yeah,
let's bring him back.
Or Anthony read it and said, maybe you've got a point. Now, I don't think that either one of those things is likely, but there was a lot of questions for people about him going to be this 3-4 outside linebacker and rushing the passer against tackles. And also, you're going to an organization that has been on rocky ground for quite some time with a head coach who already had a very weird press conference, and I'm not sure is long for the Jets already, and Adam Gase, as opposed to a team here in Minnesota that's been very stable with its front office and its head coach. And even if Anthony Barr and Mike Zimmer have butted heads at times, when a coach makes you a 4-time Pro Bowler with the role that he's selected for you, I think that he's done a lot of things right with Anthony Barr. We've said, look, his success is so high with the pass rush. Of course, he should be rushing the passer a lot. But Zimmer usually doesn't get these things wrong. And I think with Anthony Barr, he got it right to want him back. And if it's $13.5 million, that's a very reasonable price for Anthony Barr.
And you can, as we were talking about before the show started, with what his cap hit could be in 2019, this is a brand new deal. So you can push those numbers down the line and save yourself and not handicap yourself any further in free agency. But you still, at the moment, they're under $9 million in cap space. You still have to free up something to be able to pay him that figure and be able to make this thing work. Now, what you bring up with Anthony Barr as a pass rusher, last offseason during during training camp, we saw him with the defensive line and getting more into that rotation. And our friend Mike Renner over at PFF pointed out that he only lined up against an offensive tackle and rushed the passer, off the edges like an outside player 46 times last season. So we haven't seen him do it that much. Maybe that somehow factored into maybe not wanting to go to the Jets, because I know that Greg Williams, he's known for his 4-3 scheme, but Adam Gase has kind of made it clear that they're going to stay in a 3-4 defense. I mean, that's been the case with the Jets since 2006. I think we've talked about it here before that maybe it's not the best thing for Anthony Barr to be in that role full time as an outside rushing linebacker. I don't know. I think it was really interesting yesterday, and you could tell that the ink was not dry when they didn't release the figures of his deal. We saw what C.J. Mosley was going to make. We saw what other players who were pegged to the Jets were going to make. We didn't hear anything about Anthony Barr. And as you mentioned, this is one of those stand-on-the-table guys from Mike Zimmer. This is one of the ones that, it's like they fight like father and son. The comments about him coasting in 2016, and then Zimmer calling a press conference to talk about fake trade rumors that did not exist in August, saying Anthony Barr is unequivocally not being traded. clearly he is a staple of this defense. He wants him here long term, that he is a part of the plan. And I don't think Mike Zimmer was going to stand by quietly as his defense was getting ripped apart by free agency.
So that is the most likely scenario here, because now it is reported that the Vikings upped their offer, that they had some sort of offer on the table for Anthony Barr to stay. And then when the Jets came in higher, so I guess all Vikings players just use the Jets to get more money out of the Vikings, like Kirk Cousins did last year. But that is now the report that's coming out, is that Barr had agreed to sign with the Jets, but then the Vikings came back with the amount of money that he was looking for from the Vikings, and he decides to stay. I think it's a better position for Anthony Barr to be in on one of the top defenses, where he's a captain of this team and where he's been for years and knows the Mike Zimmer defense and has been highly lauded across the league to get those Pro Bowl appearances. And even though he seemed like he was frustrated at times with his role, he's had a lot of success here. And as we talk about, the draft picks for Rick Spielman, this one now signing a second contract looks a lot better for Rick Spielman and the Vikings in their draft history, that Barr has decided not to go to the New York Jets and to stay with the Minnesota Vikings. So, wow, was that a big change like 3 minutes before we went on here? But Barr is coming back.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point, to interrupt you really quick. You mentioned about how this makes Rick Spielman look in terms of his draft picks. Take a look at the first round picks that he's had over the last few years. Since he took over as GM, full-time 2012. Matt Khalil, Sharif Floyd, Anthony Barr, Trey Waynes, Laquan Bust. And Mike Hughes. Those are his draft picks at the
Did
first.
You just call him Laquan Bust?
Yes.
Wow.
And but look at that. Look at that history right there. Matt Khalil, where is he? Not on the Vikings. Where's Sharif Floyd? Recovering from a very bad knee surgery. And he will never play football again. Trey Waynes is probably not on this roster next year. He very well might not be on the roster this year if they try to continue to move money off the books and move these players off the books. Maybe it's Trey Waynes as trade bait. And Laquan Treadwell has not panned out. And he probably won't pan out, despite what Gary Kubiak says about having big plans for him. So this is really good. This is a really good sign for Rick Spielman to be able to have one of his first rounders back and pan out and still on this roster.
Okay.